Hello and welcome to all attendees, all viewers to our talk show, The Rise of Intelligent Packaging. And a very good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you, because I know for a fact, and we were just discussing this when we started this show today, that we have audience joining us from all over the world, even as far as from Asia Pac. So a very warm welcome to all our attendees, to all our viewers. In this 45-minute session, we will cover some of the best practices and success stories from the industry when we talk about intelligent packaging that drives consumer experience and is also sustainable. And we will give a sneak peek into some of the top findings and compelling insights from our latest research publication on this topic. And without much ado, I would like to introduce our speakers. A very warm welcome to them. Ken Chrisman, President of Beverages at Graham Packaging. We have Robert Lilienfeld, Executive Director at Spring, the Sustainable Packaging Research, Information and Networking Group, and Ismail Sutaria, Packaging Consultant, Future Market Insights, and myself, Aditi Basu, Chief of Marketing at Future Market Insights. I will be moderating this panel. A very warm welcome again to our speakers. We will kick this off in just a minute, but before that, just a few guidelines for our audience who are joining us. Our audience is muted, but we will do an audience Q&A at the end of the session. So please, if you have a question, do leave it in the chat box, and we will try to address that during the course of this session. But like I said, we might not have time for all the questions, but be rest assured that we will get back to you over an email. Also, this session is going to be recorded, and you will all receive a copy of the recording after the session, right? Okay, so let's get this started, and I will start with you, Ismail. So when we talk about intelligent packaging, we all know that it's going to be a massive playing field for all kinds of organizations in the packaging ecosystem. And you and your team, you have recently published a research report on the global intelligent packaging market. So can you tell us how big is the market really? What are the kind of opportunities that we see here, and what is the real adoption of intelligent packaging?
Well, talking about intelligent packaging, I would say, it's not only a buzzword, but it's probably a solution for various stakeholders and the next disruptive innovation in the packaging era. If I have to benchmark or compare this trend, it can be like a Netflix moment or like an Amazon in the e-commerce, something that is a value creator and also a sustainable solution provider. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, and next generation packaging can be a value creator for all of us, for all the stakeholders today. Let me begin with highlighting some interesting statistics over here. Pharmaceutical drugs worth more than 32 billion is wasted annually due to temperature abuse. And not only this, more than 48 million people get sick due to foodborne diseases every year. And the cost associated with food wastage every year is in billions of dollars. Can you believe it? However, to counter many such issues, I think there is a need to bring and push intelligent packaging in mainstream, which I would say is conceptualized keeping in mind a packaging solution that interacts with the product inside and also the buyer outside. See, what today's consumers want. As a consumer, I would say a better shelf life for the product, complete knowledge about the product, maybe tracking and tracing solutions, or maybe brand protection and safety. Yes, the answer to all of these is nothing but an intelligent packaging. I would say, as for our research, intelligent packaging accounts for about 2 to 3% share today and is worth 19.7 billion, and this is going to be expanding at a CAGR of more than 9%. So I can say for every $1,000 that is spent, we can say $20 is being spent on intelligent packaging. And our research suggests that 35% of bags and pouches and even boxes are expected to be intelligent by the end of 2030. Though the growth rate over the years has been gradual, yes, but the level of commercialization is expected to be robust enough with F&B brands, with healthcare companies, with logistic and cosmetic companies to capitalize from the white space opportunities that is set to arise from the intelligent packaging space today. Future Market Insights have identified 4 pillars that have set the platform for intelligent packaging, And I personally define a packaging to be intelligent if it has these four aspects. One, it has to be active and smart. Secondly, it has to be interactive and connected. Third, it has to be user-friendly and personalized. Fourth, it has to be eco-friendly. And yes, we cannot forget the sustainability aspect. That is there in everyone's mind. Moving on to the next slide. Yes, with Internet of Things gaining traction, the following decade is certainly expected to witness even quicker adoption of smart and next generation packaging formats, I would say. Yes, the implementation has already begun, be it an NFC enabled package, having temperature controlled packaging for drugs and even COVID vaccines, sensors alarming the consumers about the product condition, be it active packaging, be it virtual reality, and the list goes on. Just identify, we have some of the trends that we have identified, some of them that have gained momentum, for instance, RFID tags, barcodes, some are quick wins, that are expected to gain a lot of attention in the next 3 to 5 years. I would say these trends as quick wins. However, there are more and more revolutionary trends, be it about 3D printing, be it about augmented reality, and these trends are expected to be the value creators for the next 5 to 10 years and change the packaging industry, change the space in the packaging industry. So we have tried to identify this at product level, from the technology level, and also from the buyer's perspective. Moving on, I can tell you, the industry is already witnessing a lot of collaboration between packaging leaders, converters, the technology providers, and brands experimenting with innovative and integrated tech-enabled formats that is definitely going to shape the future of intelligent packaging. We have highlighted some of the recent collaborations taking place in the last 1 year. Well, moving on, I personally believe that most of the technologies that I have mentioned are at nascent and growth stages, but with artificial intelligence, with Internet of Things, and probably with Industry 5.0 gaining traction, intelligent packaging is certainly going to be the new normal in the years to come. Though I would say the adoption rate of these features among end users will differ, and most of them will lie on different growth paths over the years to come.
So Ismail, I think there are some compelling insights that you shared in the very beginning, which really caught my eye in terms of what is the amount of food wastage or wastage in healthcare, for example, and that leads us to think that could intelligent packaging be the answer to real global challenges like food wastage, or like be the foundation for the circular economy that we want to achieve. So that's the kind of importance that intelligent packaging has, I think, today. And I believe, Ismail, you will also share with us what is the kind of sentiment analysis of perception when we talk about intelligent packaging within the market. So how does the market perceive intelligent packaging and the adoption of it? But we will get to that in a bit, and I will move over to Ken. So we have Ken Chrisman, President of Beverages from Graham Packaging. Welcome, Ken. Well, you've just heard some of these technologies which are the trendsetters in intelligent packaging, and Graham Packaging is clearly, one of the key innovators when we talk about packaging solutions. So from your organization, what would you say is a great success story for intelligent packaging that is also driving consumer experience?
Well, Didi, it's great to be here. And there's a couple of things that we're doing. It's interesting, right? When you talk about intelligent packaging, we tend to think a lot about digital in all of this. And there's some great components here. But the first thing I want to talk about is something that's a little bit simpler. It's a product that we've developed that is essentially using rPET, which is recycled PET, to make an aluminum can, but an alternative to an aluminum can. The really cool thing about this design, and you think about this from a practical consumer perspective, is that it can be produced from 100% post-consumer recycled PET. But what's kind of cool about this is that we have tops for this that you can just take the entire top off this can, drink out of this PET can, and then reuse the can. Now, you can't do that with aluminum, it's a sharp edge. And so being creative and having the design actually speak to the intelligence behind how you would use it and how you would allow it to be reused, and how you can actually create new streams for PET, because aluminum is quite finite. I mean, I know there's a lot of recycling in aluminum, but PET is now, also considered to be highly recyclable because of all the things we've done with bottles. We're just excited about the ability to have a visual, something that strikes the consumer, is visually interesting, but also communicates a different value proposition. In this case, more sustainable, more user-friendly, and frankly, a reusable perspective. And so this is a little bit, this is, I guess, more on the basic side of how do you design to catch the consumer's eye. The next slide talks to something that's really quite exciting for us when it comes to digital. This is digital watermarks. And what we're excited about here is that one of the challenges we have with recycling any material is going to be the commingling. We have shrink sleeves, not to say anything bad about shrink sleeves, but it's, when you go and collect these bottles, it's something that has to be dealt with. It's a different material in some cases. And so that commingling is a challenge. And so we're talking with a lot of brands about how do we do something different. So Ellen MacArthur Foundation sponsored, being supported by, by the European Brands Association. How do you put essentially a clear, almost an invisible watermark, digital watermark on these containers, so that if you took a smartphone and you passed it over, even if it was in the store, you could actually see, it's almost like, it's virtual reality. You could see what all the important consumer components are to this. And so it has a consumer component to it because you actually could tell what's going on, and frankly, even more than the people take time to read labels on a, in this case, on a bottle or a container. Beyond that, it's extraordinarily helpful when it comes to post-collection sorting. So when we go through a process, PET tends to be quite readily mechanically recycled, but the sorting processes in many of these operations is where we see some challenges. So the ability to be able to have, to immediately scan an item and tell exactly what type of material it is. Now for PET, maybe some of us understand, most of us see it's clear, it's probably something like that. But for some of the more interesting, exotic, multi-layered materials, this digital watermark could be transformative because it would actually tell you exactly what that material composition is and then streamline it or divert it to the exact right part of the recycling process or the reprocessing process. So this is a nice way to think about digital consumer influence, but also thinking about what's the end of life to try to create a circularity when it comes to our materials.
Yeah, and what you really trigger me that, all these designs are conceptualized keeping in mind the end buyer, right? The buyer journey. So how will they perceive it? So it's all the customer experience is the main thing here. So thanks for sharing that example, Ken. And also recently, Graham Packaging has rebranded itself, right? Which is in a way reinforcing its brand promise towards packaging for the circular economy. So how are you making this sustainable as well?
So we're really focused on sustainability. We make bottles, we make containers, one of the world's leading bottle manufacturers. And bottles get a lot of attention. And they get a lot of attention because people use them because they're very convenient. They have a great consumer value. You can tell the quality of the item inside just because of how it was processed. But the end of life is a challenge. So circularity is fundamental for us. So we're looking at a couple of different technologies and innovations. How do we make our packaging intelligent? Well, one of the ways to make packaging intelligent is to have the design react to its, let's say in this case, its filling environment. When you take a hot fluid and you put it inside a bottle, it has an influence on the way that bottle reacts to that material. Now, generally, you have to have bottles that are pretty thick to be able to respond to having something, a hot fluid being, inserted. Most fluids are like 185, 190 degrees Fahrenheit if it's a hot filled product. And so that puts a lot of pressure on that bottle to be able to, to hold up to that temperature, not deform. And so we have a brand new technology, this active base technology that we're looking at. Self-activated means that it happens on its own. Mechanically activated happens in the process, with a mechanical intervention. In both circumstances, the real point here is that we can then operate at like 25% less material and still have that same, professional, robust bottle feel. We have a lot of brands that want to have that feel. The other part of this is that we can actually do up to 100% post-consumer resin. That is incredible in this space. To be able to have a bottle that is hot filled, but you can have that material be 100% recycled. That is a breakthrough. It's very important for where the entire industry is going. A lot of commitments made in the industries we serve with respect to 100% post-consumer. And this is one of the primary ways that our customers, our brand owners are going to be able to get to that. So that's one piece. Then the other piece is, how do you rethink some of the business models that we're working on? And we're on a great consortium with PepsiCo and Walmart, several others, and we're rethinking, the basics around the circularity. And so as a company, we think it's very important to be responsible and think, what's the end of life? How do we get that item back and put it back into the system? How do we create a truly circular path for the materials that we produce? One of the things we're looking at, of course, there's a lot of it happens to be around the collection space. Once you collect it, there are certain technologies and work that can be done to sort. And then, of course, reprocessing is relatively straightforward, but collecting is really a conundrum, especially in the United States. We're looking at some pretty clever, intelligent ways to collect bottles, including a subscriber program where consumers, there are a number of states, 40 states, in fact, that do not have bottle bills. They don't collect deposits when you buy the bottle. A product that has that uses a bottle, and you get that money back when you return it. Only 10 states do that. So these other 40 states, a number of them, believe it or not, do not have curbside recycling. And some of that's happened because China is no longer taking this material. And so it's really, changed the recycling dynamic. But then you have states like California and Washington who are now requiring a minimum amount of post-consumer. We're looking at this saying, well, it'd be great to be able to get a bag that's a barcode that people basically proactively sign up and say, I want to be in this program. And they're then held accountable to sort properly. Because the biggest challenge we have in recycling is receiving basically a pile of entirely commingled materials. The idea of being able to get it back pre-sorted from the consumer, somebody who's motivated to do this, and to be able to do that elegantly and to gamify it by using an app is very exciting. And those are the kind of different ways that we're partnering with our biggest partners, PepsiCo being one of our most important partners. How do we get consumers? How do we enable that circularity? How do we engage in parts of that circular stream where we're seeing some breakdowns, we're seeing some gaps? And so we're excited about the innovation, the intelligence in design and application that's being employed even in collecting and recovering and reprocessing our product at the end of their life.
Great. And it's probably right to say that these are the kind of market leading innovations that we will see more and more coming in. So thank you so much, Ken, for sharing that. It's great to hear your views. As like I said, Graham Packaging is one of the leading players when it comes to innovation in sustainability and intelligent packaging. So thanks again. And now we'll move to Ismail. So this is the stage where we will share with you some insights on our analysis that we've done in terms of what is the perception of intelligent packaging. So we know that there is an opportunity area. This is the next big thing. Ismail said it's the Netflix moment for OTT. We heard from Ken. So let's look at the market statistics in terms of what is really the buyer perception when we call intelligent packaging, what really drives the market, where are the end use investment pockets, and will it be outsourced or in-house?
While working on this research, I personally believe it is very important to understand the sentiments of various consumers, buyers, brands, and various stakeholders across the packaging value chain. So we got to know some very interesting insights and facts that intelligent packaging is expected to be the next big thing in the packaging industry, and 4 out of every 5 manufacturers believe in this. However, while understanding the current level of awareness among buyers, it was the Gen Z and the millennial group which are more likely to buy intelligent packaging products. So I'm sure this is going to help in the positioning strategy for various packaging companies while making this product or maybe packaging solution. Whereas to understand what today's consumers want in intelligent packaging, they want a better shelf life of the food product, and they want the product monitoring conditions or maybe sensors attached so they know what kind of behavior the product is doing inside. Well, moving on, yes, we got to know that eco-friendly and sustainability was on the top of the charts for most of them. Whereas while understanding which are some lucrative end-use pockets, it was food and beverage, which was the most lucrative investment destination or end use, followed by the healthcare industry. Also, it was interesting to know that it is, boxes, bags, and pouches. These are the formats that are going to be integrated with intelligent packaging features in the years to come. And even the buyers and the brands are working on this development. When to understand which technologies are gaining traction, it was more of artificial intelligence and machine learning. It was also augmented reality and virtual reality. So these are the some areas where manufacturers, the converters, the packaging companies want to experiment and see how well we can serve the consumers and probably create a new buying and packaging experience for all the consumers and buyers. One thing was also very interesting to know that almost 60% of the suppliers were thinking of outsourcing the technology aspect, whereas 37% believed that they would be doing it in-house. And last but not the least, yes, sustainability, I would say, was a clear winner. Go green is going to remain the trend. And I'm sure each and every packaging manufacturer and converter is working on this aspect. So just to summarize it in a very simple manner, I would say for brands today, intelligent packaging and sustainable packaging is the new product branding strategy and a differentiator marketing tool for them. Well, for buyers, it was clear that eco-friendly was preferred across all age groups and demographics, especially with the Gen Z and millennials who possibly, I believe, would not mind sharing some extra money for an intelligent packaging. And then for packaging manufacturers, technology organization, I think these are the ones who are going to lead the way with radical innovations that are cost effective and also sustainable. And yes, I think packaging leaders, packaging companies are currently working towards striking a perfect balance, between maybe innovation and practicality to introduce offerings that are premium, that are personalized, yet sustainable in nature.
Some of these answers are definitely no surprise, like you said, sustainability, for example, or Gen Z really leading the way in terms of perception towards intelligent packaging. And for our audience, there is something that I would like to say, that in the interest of time, we are only sharing very holistic trends and some very top level insights from our survey or from our research publication. But do check out our latest report on the global intelligent packaging market analysis, which is published on our Market Engage platform, which is the delivery platform from Future Market Insights, because we really cover at a product level, at a technology level, at a country level, who are the key players, the pricing strategy overall, what are the challenges faced by the industry, how to mitigate those. So it's a more in-depth study than what we're really showing here. We are just scraping the surface here. So new members, kindly sign up. For existing members, you have your login, and that will lead you to your dashboard where you just need to search for the report, intelligent packaging, and you will arrive at the report page where you can view the exec summary, you can look at the table of contents, you can explore our multi-format research. So do check that out. And this is where I will just stop sharing my screen. And one thing which we note during the whole session, and it's no surprise, sustainability is a term that comes up again and again. And therefore, we have Robert Lilienfeld, Executive Director at Spring. Welcome, Robert. In your current role, you are advising a lot of multinational and global enterprises on sustainable packaging best practices. How do you define sustainable packaging?
Well, the interesting thing is I don't start with the package. I start with the holistic approach of the product and the package. And our definition is that a sustainable package is one that delivers the full value of the product contained within it, and it does so with the least amount of economic, environmental, and negative social impact throughout the life cycle. And I can see Ken nodding his head. And the reason for that is, let's be honest, packaging doesn't exist in a vacuum. Packaging on average accounts from anywhere between 3 and 8 to 10% of the total impact of the product and the package. And therefore, the primary job of the package is to protect the product. And many times, the package that does the best job of protection would not be the one that the average consumer would consider to be the most sustainable. But since reducing food waste or eliminating food waste is the #1 priority, intelligent packaging goes beyond merely what's recyclable to what reduces the most amount of waste with the least amount of cost.
True. And actually, I really wanted to ask you, why do you include the product itself in your definition? But you've answered that, and it's very true what you say. So how do you go about recommending sustainable packaging options?
Well, I'm glad you asked that today, because for those of you in Europe or actually anywhere in the world, if you go to Packaging Europe magazine today, one of the lead articles is on a process that Spring just released today that is a way for management, both top management and packaging engineers, to understand the whole process of sustainable packaging development. And it starts at the top. You have to start by saying, what is it we're trying to accomplish? And what we're trying to accomplish is reduction of greenhouse gas generation, reduction of fresh water usage, material conservation, and minimization of chemicals of concern. So if that's your overall objective, then you got to say, all right, well, what's the next step down? What should we be looking at? And it forces you to look at things a little differently, because there are external contexts, social, political, economic, cultural, all of which have to be reflected when you make packaging decisions. And in most companies, what happens is the packaging designers get all excited about something. They show it to the marketing people, who cut back on it a little bit and say, well, we can't afford that. And then they show it to management, and management goes, gee, I don't know, my husband doesn't really like that approach. They're all for recycling. So you have to start by knowing that these issues are going to come up, and you have to plan for them. So therefore, it's a very top-down approach. The other thing we do is we take a very neutral look at the various tactics that are available: chemical recycling, mechanical recycling, waste to energy, industrial composting. I can make a case for any of these. I can't make a case for all of them. And I can't make a case for all of them at every spot in the universe at the same time. And we have to remember that our overall objective is to reduce CO2 generation, and that new contexts, new laws, and new technologies are always coming along that we have to take into account. And again, we're looking to achieve our objective, but the tools in our toolbox are going to change as time goes on. And it's up to all of us, especially those of us who are over the age of 55, to remember that change is a good thing, and that new tools come along all the time.
Indeed, very true. And what I've always wondered is, of course, we talk about intelligent packaging in the sense that it is technology enabled, it helps in consumer experience, and then you also have the pressure to make it sustainable. So how do the two work together?
Well, the first thing is you got to go back and ask yourself the question, what is it we're trying to accomplish? And why do we have intelligent packaging? And the reason we have intelligent packaging primarily is to reduce food waste. And that being the case, you have to look at where the food waste is in any given supply chain. And in the lesser developed world, that food waste happens before the product gets to the consumer. It's during distribution. It's during farming and collection. So what you're looking for from an intelligent package is different there than if you're in the United States or Northern Europe, for example, where the real food waste occurs from the fridge to the fork. So you have to, there's many ways to look at intelligent packaging, but again, it's a smart package makes sure that the food actually gets not just delivered to who's going to eat it, but actually gets eaten. And when you look at it from that perspective, typically people say, oh, intelligent packaging, I can look at this little code in my refrigerator on the fish, and it tells me whether or not that fish is edible. Well, here's the problem with that. If it's green, people will go, cool, that's great, I could leave it in my fridge. If it goes to a yellow warning light, people go, uh-oh, I don't think I want to eat it. it's warning and they throw it out, or they put it in the back of the fridge. If it goes to red, people go, oh, I don't want to eat it. So potentially intelligent packaging could increase food waste. And what we have to realize is getting the product out of the fridge and onto the fork is the primary objective of intelligent packaging. And therefore, an intelligent package isn't just one that tells the consumer, this is what you do. An intelligent package tells the other, looks around and says, what else is in this fridge? You know, what possibly could I combine with to eat? And the fridge says, hey, look at what I got. You know, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at everything here and I'm going to come up with a recipe for the products that are, you know, most likely to go bad in the next 2 or 3 days. And I'm going to make it convenient and easy for the people who live in this house to eat well and not throw anything out. That to me is the ultimate intelligent concept for packaging.
Well, thank you, Robert, for sharing that. And I see that we have some questions already flowing in from our audience. And one of the questions is that how do you make intelligent packaging? Are there any challenges that you face in implementing intelligent packaging? That's the question. And it's for you, Ken. So, you know, would you like to answer that?
Sure. The biggest challenge that we face in intelligent packaging is history, right? The idea of intelligent packaging is that you've got to have a paradigm shift. You really need to be thinking fundamentally differently about, you know, what value does packaging bring? What is, you know, the point that Robert was raising, you know, the packaging serves, you know, is useful to the degree it delivers a value, that it believes in economic utility to the people who are using the item that it's protecting. Well, there's a lot of different ways to think about, you know, how do we communicate something of value to a consumer on any one of these different mechanisms. Now, we believe that circularity, when it comes to our materials, is a value. It's a social value to the entire, you know, to the entire globe. And so thinking differently about, well, it's not just about the packaging being intelligent, it's all the other pieces it's going to communicate in order to be intelligent, in order to be able to create this interconnectivity. You know, this intelligent refrigerator that Robert's talking about, that, you know, it's almost like once you create these networks and these components, you have to have some faith that those technology pieces will be leveraged, if not now, in the future. But if everybody's waiting for somebody else to start with this, then we never get to a point where, you know, where a technology or a concept is adopted. So it's about allowing ourselves to be curious and think fundamentally differently about this, you know, the value that packaging brings.
Are there any cost pressures as well?
But there's tremendous cost, especially when it comes to anything that's consumed. There's tremendous cost pressures. But, you know, this is where packaging becomes very interesting, right? Because it has to deliver a value. I mean, I could walk around with my hands cupped filled with something I'm drinking. That's clearly not sustainable, right? That's not a value. And so part of the idea of cost really comes down to what are consumers prepared to pay for, and are brand owners prepared to actually fulfill these very ambitious sustainability goals that they've communicated. You know, getting to carbon neutrality, getting to 100% recyclable. Those are outstanding goals. But the first time someone decides, hey, from economic reasons, I'm not going to do that because virgin materials are still less expensive, then we start to see an erosion, right? The cost opportunity exists as long as everyone is prepared to recognize and acknowledge that, hey, there is societal benefit to using, you know, to fulfilling and meeting the kind of sustainability goals that were laid out, because that then creates enough economic utility for, you know, to afford some of the technology we have. Because the technology might make things more expensive to start. I know we like to say it'd be cheaper up front.
Yep.
Likely long term, it will make things fundamentally less expensive. But that's often not necessarily true with new technologies when they first emerge. And so we have to be able to give some of these ideas runway. And staying true to those sustainability goals will essentially provide that economic umbrella.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree with Robert and Ken about the challenges. And one more thing that I can say is the adoption rate. You know, probably I believe that the adoption might be different in the Asia Pacific cluster compared to maybe North America or Europe. So yeah, we need to see at, you know, how the demographics are adopting the different features that are being introduced in intelligent packaging. And that's something interesting that we can see. among the audience or among the buyers of different geographic locations.
Thanks for that, Ismail. And we have time for just another question. And this one is for Robert because it's on sustainability. What are the best practices that you see in the industry when it comes to sustainable packaging?
Well, it's interesting that to me, the companies that are doing the most in these areas are the ones that are also being vilified by the public and the media. You can't really get involved in this area unless you have a significant stake in the outcome. And the Cokes and the Pepsis are always looking at these issues. And Ken used an interesting term, which was the social perspective, because the scientific perspective of sustainability and the social perspective many times are in conflict with each other. There's perception and there's reality. And it's sort of like in my perfect world, those two things will get married, but they probably don't, just because what the public wants to believe or believes in the reality are very different. So companies like Coke, Pepsi, and to me, Unilever and Procter & Gamble are the ones that I look to for the most sort of not just interest, but impact, because they have to look at both. I worked for Procter & Gamble many years ago, and we were always weighing the scientific impact of what it is we knew to be right versus the public impact. And there is no single answer. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And when you look at like the Holy Grail 2.0 that Ken mentioned going on in Europe to enhance the recyclability of materials, it's brilliant. And it can be done cheaply. I mean, people think, well, you need all this fancy equipment. Basically, you need an app and a phone, and you can do what it is that Holy Grail does. So it's the organizations that have the most to lose also have the most to gain. So I guess that's the simplest way to say it.
Yeah, Robert was spot on. These CPG companies are the ones that get the most attention because their products are ubiquitous. You see them everywhere. We partner with virtually all the leading brands. Whether it's the Abbotts, the Danones, the Cokes, the Pepsis. I find all of them to be genuinely committed to transformation, to actually creating this circularity we're talking about. There are a lot of components involved in, a lot of stakeholders involved in how do you create that circularity. There is a reason why there are so many plastic bottles, for example. As I got into this industry, having come from the protective packaging industry for much of my life, getting into rigid packaging and bottles, people use them because it's convenient. It's highly convenient to have these bottles. That's why people use them. There's an economic utility that's unquestioned. These companies recognize that there's a utility, but to Robert's point, they do get a bit vilified. There is all kinds of creativity. I just had a meeting, several weeks ago that included just a handful of us, including the CEO of Pepsi. I would tell you that Ramon LaGuardia his entire being seems to gravitate around sustainability. It is absolutely genuine. This is not a business play. That's why I mentioned the social piece. People are truly passionate and engaged on this, and especially the CPG players, and they're the ones who have the economic leverage to do something and actually make a difference. And so I find, a lot of the things that I shared earlier, those are response to consumer opportunities. Those are responses to economic opportunity in the marketplace where we can deliver value. Sustainability is now becoming something where you can invest and get value out. And for many, many years, people talked a great game about sustainability, and most people were not prepared to pay a single penny more for that benefit. I think we've started to see that really change. And I think that future generations are even more committed to that. We see that somewhat generationally, the enthusiasm around sustainability.
Great. Well, that was a quite strong statement, Ken, and a very good closing remark, I would say. And we do have a few more questions from the audience. So that's really good that our audience is engaged. But unfortunately, we are not able to answer that in this session because we just have a couple of minutes. And I would like to take the last few minutes to really thank our speakers who've taken out time to come to this talk show to share their invaluable insights. So thank you, Ken, Robert, and Ismail for joining me in this talk show. And for our audience, you will of course receive a recording of this talk show, and you will also get a copy of a packaging ebook. Because Future Market Insights is not just researching on intelligent packaging, but the length and breadth of the packaging industry across 30 plus packaging machines, formats, and material. So you will receive the ebook for that as well, and the slides that have been shown in this talk show. So I would like to thank our audience as well for joining us in this 45-minute session. Hope you enjoyed. Our next packaging talk show would be in January. We are still thinking of the topic, would be an interesting one similar to this. And I expect to see most of you there. Well, until then, I would say thank you so much for joining, everyone. Take care and bye-bye.